And you also had mentioned diversity and inclusion
Yeah.
as something that's really important for organizations. First, define that for us,
Yeah.
and then tell us why it's so important.
So in the definition, there's the why. So let's remove it from a business context for a second and just go into our, biology 101 and talk about ecosystems. So we know that the more diverse the ecosystem is, the healthier the ecosystem is, and the more resilient it is to like infection or change or those types of things, right? So the same analogy applies in the business context. Diversity is important in the business context because it provides a healthier environment. Now, we have a tendency, particularly in the West, when we talk about diversity, we're talking about obvious differences, right? Male, female, skin color, hair or no hair, right? Whatever the case may be. But I like to think in terms of diversity, not just in diversity of thought, which people understand that as well, but diversity of response to stimulus. Right. So, and this is where my PhD studies come in, right? So a homogeneous group of people who really think alike, brought up alike, who've all experienced the same type of stimulus will obviously respond similarly, which is not good for an ecosystem. You want the ecosystem to be able to respond differently to different types of stimulus. So diversity of response to stimulus, I think, is even more important because it allows for people to be witness to how you reacting to the same stimulation that I'm reacting to. And then what does that mean for the organization? How do we then bring those two things into a conversation about that reaction? And then what does that mean? I'll give you another example about that. Whether or not you're male or female or whatever your diverse difference is, if you're an engineer, you're an engineer. And you're going to respond to things like engineers respond to. So when you bring in a training person, OD person, I respond totally differently, right? But the conversations that the engineer and the training person has leads to new ways of exploring or thinking about something. If we look back to some of the greatest technological tragedies, right? Like Columbia or Challenger, any one of those things, when you understand that so many of the engineers were responding to the same input the same way, and the few engineers that decided to respond to it differently were overlooked, led to that type of thing. And this is where this groupthink philosophy came from, right? So we want to avoid groupthink. That's why diversity is so important. Now, the inclusion part is also very interesting. If you look up inclusion in the dictionary, it kind of says, a part of the whole, right? So you ask the question, a part of the whole what? Not just a part of the workforce, right? We're very good at hiring a diverse population of people, right? Because that's who's available. So we're not talking about just hiring diverse people. We're talking about including them in what? Including them in the ideation, including them in the solution, including them in the conversation, beyond the conversation, but including them in the product, the thing that results from these conversations. So in my last experience, we focused more on inclusion than diversity. So we made it a small d and we made it a big I, right? So since we're good at diversity, or better, we learned how to manage diversity. Now we have to learn how to leverage inclusion.